Hello, how are you? Today I'm going to talk to you about a mistake that many people make, and it's a serious one. It can even cost people their lives. In fact, I recently heard about a case involving an elderly person who passed away because of this problem, and I also heard about another person who managed to discover this issue in time, changed their diet, and was able to reverse the situation. I'm going to tell you how to do this so you can stay alert. Stick around until the end. You won't want to miss it. Before we start, I want to ask you, how old are you, and do you have any health conditions? Have you recently discovered any health problems? Even if it has nothing to do with the topic of this video, let me know if you have any kind of health condition so I can make more videos about it and help you as well. If you can, go ahead and like the video. This is super important to me. Let's start by talking about this specific condition here that can put our lives at risk. This specific condition is called hypocalemia, which is the scientific name for potassium deficiency. It may sound surprising, but many people suffer from this deficiency without knowing it. It's an important test to do when you're getting blood work done because it can cause several problems. Potassium is very important for our heart. It controls heartbeats, regulates blood pressure, keeps the muscles working properly, and even helps our intestines to move, thanks to the control it has over our muscles. There's also the issue of potassium deficiency, where the body literally loses its rhythm, including the rhythm of the heart. So potassium is closely related to the muscular system, to muscle contraction, and the heart can really suffer because of this. And many people don't know this, but elderly people can be more affected by a specific situation that often affects some seniors. Of course, the first thing that always stands out is the issue of a more restrictive diet. Many people, as they age, become increasingly restrictive and selective with their diet, worrying a lot about certain specific foods, about calories, and end up consuming less variety in their meals. So sometimes they reduce the intake of foods that are sources of potassium in their daily lives. Another factor could be the consumption of certain medications that can deplete potassium, such as some diuretics, which people sometimes take to control blood pressure or swelling. While it's important to manage these conditions, these medications end up depleting potassium through the kidneys, or laxatives, which can cause you to lose potassium through urine or stool. So it's important that if you take any of these medications, you talk to your doctor and check if it's necessary to think together about how to increase your intake of potassium-rich foods to make sure you won't have any kind of deficiency in this regard. There's also the issue of dehydration. Elderly people usually feel less thirsty, right? We gradually lose some of that sensitivity to thirst, which can lead to mild, more chronic dehydration. And this worsens the loss of electrolytes like potassium itself, which can cause the problem I mentioned to you. There's also the issue of chronic diseases, poorly guided diets, and sometimes even the person's own mindset. Some people who follow excessively restrictive diets stop consuming fruits and vegetables altogether, and as a result, naturally end up with lower potassium levels. And this ends up being very dangerous for our health. Hypokalemia, this potassium deficiency, can indeed lead to weakness. But as I mentioned, if it's a very severe case of potassium deficiency, it can even be fatal because it can lead to cardiac arrhythmia, in other words, irregular heartbeats. In more serious cases, it can lead to cardiac arrest during sleep, respiratory failure, because the respiratory muscles also need potassium to contract regularly, leading to recurring, constant, and progressive muscle weakness. Since potassium is closely related to muscle function, sometimes the person has trouble walking, starts having more difficulty performing daily activities that used to be easy, and even digestive problems. People might say, "Oh, Patricia, I have constipation that just won't go away no matter what." Because when potassium levels are very low, even the muscles in the intestines can't contract as they should to eliminate stool. At night, this problem can become more noticeable because of how our physiology works. We go through the nocturnal dipping, a natural drop in blood pressure that slows the heart down, and during this period, an arrhythmia might quietly slip by without drawing much attention, which can, in some cases, lead to a silent collapse. Many people can develop this during the night. They might experience an episode at night without even knowing it. Additionally, many people report experiencing nighttime dizziness related to this potassium deficiency, which is also dangerous because if you get up to urinate at night and feel very dizzy, you could fall and hit your head, you could break a bone, or suffer a more serious injury, which can also put your life at risk. That's why we say that at night, everything is more complicated. Of course, there are ways to reverse this, as I mentioned, and when we think about reversing potassium deficiency, we always think about diet. Potassium supplements are very dangerous and should always be taken under the close supervision of a nutritionist or doctor. very carefully and in a personalized way, because the balance between potassium and sodium is very delicate and it can change your heart rhythm. So it's best if you try to make this change through your diet. For example, a medium banana already contains about 400 milligrams of potassium. Half an avocado can have between 500 and 600 milligrams of potassium. So you can already get a large amount of potassium through your own diet, with these two fruits, for example, which are easy to add to your daily routine. There was a very interesting study published in the New England Journal of Medicine, which found that the higher the intake of potassium, the lower the risk of fatal cardiovascular events. But when we talk about potassium, we're talking about dietary potassium, okay? And speaking of dietary potassium, the World Health Organization recommends that you consume between 2,500 and 3,500 milligrams of potassium per day. Of course, individual needs can vary, depending on whether you're male or female, your age, your stage of life, whether you're pregnant or not, or if you have any health conditions. But on average, that's about the amount, just so you have an idea for your daily routine. So focusing on potassium-rich foods is very important. After all, it's not just excess salt or sodium that can be harmful, but a lack of potassium can be dangerous too, as you've seen. Potassium actually acts as a counterbalance to sodium. There is the sodium-potassium pump, in which potassium also helps to excrete the excess sodium in our body. So the excess fluid. When sodium is eliminated, it takes the excess water with it and is expelled through urine. This reduces the strain on the heart and decreases body swelling. So potassium is wonderful, as long as it comes from natural dietary sources. I've already told you about avocados and bananas, which are good sources. There are other very interesting sources as well. They are plant-based sources, so coconut water is fantastic, banana, I already told you, potato is fantastic too. Beans are very good, a great source too. Orange, kiwi, papaya, cantaloupe are good sources of potassium. And leafy greens, right? Spinach, kale, broccoli. Legumes, such as lentils and chickpeas, are also excellent sources of potassium. So you can see that if you have a diet focused on vegetables, greens, and fruits, you are very unlikely to have a potassium deficiency. What happens is that many people nowadays have a diet that is very poor nutritionally. Rice and steak, rice and chicken, then pasta, chicken nuggets, lots of frozen and processed foods, and then you really can have a situation that favors this deficiency. Tell me if you usually eat these foods that naturally contain potassium in your daily life, or if you're going to start making an effort to include them. I would love to see your comment. Remember to like the video, it helps me out, and share it with anyone who would enjoy it or who needs it. Let's work together to expand this chain of good. That's what I want with the channel. See you next time. Bye.